Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Meet Them Where They Are. This presentation will provide a brief overview of the Community Tech Connect program that was offered through Literacy Links South Central. I'm Anne-Marie Curtin, a project manager at Literacy Links South Central. We'd like to thank the Government of Canada for providing the funding for this project. Our organization is part of the Literacy and Basic Skills system that provides programming for adults in the province of Ontario, Canada. We don't deliver services directly. Instead, we work with approximately 25 adult literacy agencies that do provide direct services. We support these adult literacy programs through facilitating local service planning, a role we've played since 1991. We discuss community needs and the needs of underserved populations and discuss ways to increase awareness of adult literacy and programming. Literacy Links South Central also provides practitioner training to adult literacy staff, develops curriculum, raises awareness of adult literacy in all of its forms, and provides information and referral services to those in our 6-county area looking for programming. We also play a key role in developing partnerships with other community services such as Ontario Works, Employment Services, and other places where clients with low levels of literacy may reside. On behalf of the literacy programs in our planning area, we regularly seek funding to address identified community needs as they relate to literacy. At the time of writing the proposal for this project in 2018, the digital divide was already growing, both in size and impact, negatively affecting individuals, families, and communities across Literacy Links South Central's catchment area. We were seeing an increase in poverty, a decrease in accessibility to social services, and isolation for the underrepresented groups identified as a focus for this call for proposals. The Literacy and Basic Skills program in Ontario has historically taught digital literacy and has one of its 6 competencies, use digital technology, devoted to it. However, Literacy and Basic Skills agencies had a limited capacity to address the digital literacy needs in their area because of the eligibility criteria imposed by the provincial government related to serving digital literacy needs. The Literacy and Basic Skills agencies have suitability criteria that determine the populations they can serve with their provincial funding and how many individuals they can serve. We saw a need and therefore applied for funding from the Digital Literacy Exchange Program to increase digital literacy skills of underrepresented populations and to reduce the digital divide. The call for proposals came through the Government of Canada's Digital Literacy Exchange Program, or as we called it in our office, the LEP. The details of this call for proposal was clear. This funding for the Digital Literacy Exchange Program was intended to take digital literacy programming outside of the traditional educational settings to offer, instead, place-based learning in the community. It even went so far as to state that academic institutions could not apply. In the end, this funding enabled agencies partnering on this project to expand their digital literacy footprint in our communities. It also enabled literacy programs and our community partners to explore unique models for program delivery. Our partners on this project already served all of the underrepresented groups identified as priorities through this call for proposal. Those groups were persons with disabilities, Indigenous people, individuals who have not completed high school, residents of rural and remote areas, language minorities, which means they're francophone outside of Quebec or anglophone living in Quebec, persons who have low income, newcomers to Canada, individuals whose first language is not English, and persons who are 65 and over. As a project team, we were well positioned to engage people from these underrepresented groups and provide additional services to them. And Literacy Link South Central did not deliver any of the digital literacy programming. Instead, we relied on our project partners to do this. You'll see here a list of project partners. We consider these organizations to be the experts at delivering programming to their target population. As time progressed, 3 of our original partners needed to withdraw from the project due to overwhelming needs their agencies were experiencing during the COVID pandemic. However, we were able to engage 2 new partners who approached us about the emergent digital literacy needs of the people in their community. In early 2022, we welcomed the Quest Center, a resource center serving people in local rural area, and the Brant Skills Center, a community-based literacy and basic skills program. You might be surprised to see Fanshawe College, an academic institution, listed here. Fanshawe College partnered with us to have their instructors deliver digital literacy programming out in their corresponding communities. You'll also see literacy and basic skills agencies listed here. We encouraged those organizations to seek participants from outside of their programs, which could be seen as an opportunity to bring in new learners if they could also benefit from literacy and basic skills programming. We were determined to go out to the community and meet them where they are. Our project originally proposed 2 different models for program delivery. One was a structured program with a target of 16 hours of digital literacy training. In most cases, the structured program saw a group of people regularly attending a series of workshops, with each session building on the session before. A second model was pop-up delivery, an idea that sprouted from seeing stores fill vacant storefronts or merchandisers popping up in areas where you least expect it. Some of our initial programming ideas for pop-up included being at a mall, at a food bank, or even in a church. Partners delivering the Community Tech Connect programming, whether it was structured or pop-up, were given the flexibility to design their programming in a way to fit their organizational needs, the needs of the community they were working in, and the needs of the individuals they were working with. In our proposal, we also suggested that we would form a community of practice during this project. For those of you who are unsure what a community of practice is, this statement clearly defines it. A community of practice is defined as an organized group of professional people who share the same interests in resolving an issue, improving skills, and learning from each other's experiences. With so many partners delivering programming to diverse populations across many counties, it seemed that a community of practice could help keep us moving forward in an effective and cohesive way. And as you know by now, the Government of Canada funded us to implement what we titled the Community Tech Connect project, starting in February 2019, and with an eventual 1-year extension, our project was to end in March of 2022. The number of people we were contracted to deliver to was 855. Based on our request, we received a limited amount of funds to buy laptops and Chromebooks, and to purchase software and technical devices for participants who required these supports to learn. ASL translation was also included where that need was identified. As one of our partners was a Francophone organization, we also requested and received funds to translate the resources we intended to develop. Developing resources was one of our first tasks. At the onset of this project, we developed a series of 23 modules to build basic digital literacy. The very first module addressed fear of computers and technology, recognizing that false ideologies need to be unlearned before new ones can be learned. The parts of the computer and computer terminology were also addressed. Computer safety around online shopping, filling out online forms, and sharing of private information was also included. These last modules were particularly important as time progressed and the COVID pandemic hit. All of the original modules were translated into French and were also adapted to ensure accessibility features could be used when the materials were online. With additional funds, we were able to digitize the project's series of modules as well as other resources that were identified by our project partners as being useful. The project's modules were intended to provide the foundation of digital literacy programming. Our partners were free to source other resources as well, and some even backfilled their programming with instructional videos they found online. The initial stages of the project were spent establishing partnerships in the various communities, finding places to provide digital literacy programming, and connecting with places where our future digital literacy participants frequent. In October of 2019, we provided our first Community Tech Connect program, and many more soon followed. The partners providing the programming were excited as they shared learning success stories and were anticipating new partnerships going forward. We knew as a group that momentum was building, and we were going to be able to engage many community members and build their skills and confidence related to using a computer. I'll know what happened a few months down the road. COVID was upon us, and we went into our first of many lockdowns. Literacy Link South Central's 10 partners were impacted by COVID, just as Literacy Link South Central itself was impacted. Staff had to create spaces and places to work exclusively from home until such a time as the province began reopening. When the pandemic first hit, all in-person programming stopped, including several Community Tech Connect programs that we had underway. Partner programs were then consumed with working within their new reality, getting staff set up at home to work remotely, learning new platforms like Zoom, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams to continue connecting with colleagues, reaching out to people in their program they had been serving when the pandemic hit to maintain communication. Given that the Tech Connect project was intended to reach out to vulnerable populations and non-traditional locations, this was not possible when all but essential services were closed. Our challenge then became, how do you reach out remotely to people who don't have digital literacy skills? The need for digital literacy skills and the consequence of not having them had never been higher, as people began to experience increasing vulnerability because of low digital technical skills. People in the community were falling further behind and weren't even aware of how far behind they would become as the pandemic continued. Social isolation was on the rise, and the range of essential tasks that had to be done online or with the aid of technology were increasing exponentially. Applying for COVID benefits like CERB, accessing COVID announcements and information, registering for vaccinations, downloading QR codes, and shopping online for the first time safely, for example. When the Community Tech Connect program began, people participated often as part of a social and recreational activity. But it was becoming more apparent that people who lacked the internet and ability to use technology were now seen as being at risk and vulnerable. The need for our community members to acquire digital literacy skills had become immediate and urgent. As communities focused on providing technology and internet to individuals, the Community Tech Connect program was a constant reminder that providing access to technology only partially meets digital needs. People must also know how to use technology effectively and safely. As predicted, it was difficult to engage hard-to-reach participants when lockdown was in place. Some of our training partners had sourcing participants that were connected to other parts of their organization. One Tech Connect partner found participants within his own organization who, because of COVID, were obviously lacking in basic digital literacy skills. That instructor remarked, "Someone might not know they lack these skills until they need them." Others reached out to past participants and offered digital literacy upgrading opportunities. Interestingly, some past participants reached out to the trainers for additional help, for example, wanting to learn how to use Zoom. As time went on, Tech Connect partners began seeing opportunities to use digital literacy programming as a gap filler and as a bridging program. Here's some examples of opportunities that were revealed. Online learning, helping people prepare to use online learning platforms and communication tools like Zoom for goals related to further education and training, like apprenticeship training. Without Tech Connect intervention, people were at risk of not being able to pursue their education. Tech Connect programming also built digital confidence in some people so they would be more motivated to seek out online education and training. In-program support, helping people who found themselves suddenly in online programming to be successful online learners. One example was with a local employment-related program that saw an online participant falling further and further behind, to the point where the program staff were suggesting that she may be asked to leave the program. She had great enthusiasm for what she was learning and the employment opportunities attached to that program. However, she lacked the digital literacy skills required to successfully participate. The Community Tech Connect program intervened and provided that person with intense, one-on-one digital literacy instruction. In the end, she was a very successful online learner, and her digital literacy instructor remarked that this woman presented the biggest learning curve he had ever seen during his entire career. Settlement agencies, helping newcomers to not only learn about digital technology, but also about the related English terminology. Further teachable moments include exploring digital literacy in the Canadian workplace culture. Employment programs, supporting job seekers with foundational digital literacy skills to use at an employment agency. While employment programs are positioned to help people with internet research, completing online applications, or succeeding during an online interview, there needed to be a basic competency with computers before these kinds of digital activities could take place. Libraries, providing pop-up digital literacy programming. The libraries are considered a safe place and a place where community gathers, especially in rural areas. In one rural area, due to the success of a pop-up digital literacy program offered earlier, a regular drop-in program was developed in partnership with the library where people could ask for assistance with their digital devices and the computer program of their choosing. Municipality, helping to address the digital literacy needs of the potentially vulnerable populations within their program. During this project, the Community Tech Connect team partnered with the City of London and created the Introduction to Digital Literacy Workshop, a pilot project for Ontario Works clients. During the workshop series, instructors introduced learners to phishing, personal versus private information, evaluating online information, and recognizing spam. The instructors were also taught learners how to use Gmail and other G Suite products such as Google Docs, and how to navigate the Ontario Works My Benefit website. Low-income housing, helping people with digital literacy skills who may already reside in an agency's housing units, for example, the YWCA's adult and youth homes. Seniors centers and seniors housing, helping seniors to overcome the fear of technology in the safety of their home and with their peers. On one occasion, a Tech Connect partner trained a staff person working in a senior's residence on how to provide digital literacy support to residents from within. In general, seniors were often cited as being the most enthusiastic, engaged digital literacy learners. Program-specific support. Preparing people to participate in a specific program. For example, our Tech Connect partner worked regularly with Mennonite women who were about to enter the Personal Support Worker or the PSW program. Knowing the PSW program was going to be using iPads as their tool for instruction, our Tech Connect partner designed a program that focused on preparing participants for the digital literacy needs specific to that programming using iPads. And the bridging could go in both directions. We could use digital literacy programming to capture a disengaged population, engage them in learning about digital technology, and then raise the awareness of other programming they could benefit from going forward. For example, like literacy and basic skills programs, or the college's computer course for seniors, and so on. Proposal for this project, our initial assumption was that people would be learning using computers and laptops. When the pandemic hit, there were no agencies or organizations offering in-person access to their computer hubs. Participants were left to use their at-home devices as a learning tool. The technology we used to deliver programming changed from computers and laptops to tablets, cell phones, and Chromebooks. The challenge here was that the trainers also needed to learn how to use these devices in order to train others in how to use them. In one area, free phones were made available through partner programs. As we knew, though, just because someone has a phone doesn't mean they know how to use it to access social supports or government supports, or that they know how to navigate online school portals and online courses. The Tech Connect program was able to provide training to complete these activities. However, trainers needed to become aware of how these devices worked, as each differed in capability and offerings. When delivering remotely, some trainers found that not having access to the participant's device made it difficult to understand their participants' challenges. The Community Tech Connect team proved themselves to be a creative and resilient training team at all times, but especially during the height of the COVID pandemic. In yet another example of meeting them where they are, trainers used telephone and texting, Facebook Time, Facebook Messenger, private Facebook groups, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, and House Party to maintain connections. Often these were the platforms that learners were already using and comfortable with. As stated before, there was the time needed for trainers themselves to become aware of how to use digital technology in a new way. So, for example, Zoom and Facebook. Now with COVID, these platforms had become instructional platforms. Of course, delivering programming online was much more challenging than in person. Trainers noted it was much harder to convey sympathy and empathy and to connect with learners over a screen, and therefore it was more difficult to build trust. Classroom settings build community and encourage exchange. When instructing online, building a sense of community is challenging. Trainers also noted that since you're not able to read body language online, it's harder to gauge if a person is understanding or engaged in a lesson. And when working with a newcomer population, one instructor pointed out that accents are often harder to understand when meeting online than the norm of delivering programming in person. Access to rural internet remained an issue in many of the areas we were providing programming. One of our creative and resilient project partners allowed participants to sit in their parking lot to access the agency's internet server. Now, as our project enters its final days, we'd like to share a few lessons learned with you. Trainers were consistent in their feedback about preferred program design. Pop-ups were the most valued program model, especially during the early days of COVID when it was apparent that people just wanted to know what they needed to know to get to the next step. In the end, trainers realized that there were more contact hours delivered through pop-up programming than there was in structured programming. People craved and benefited from personalized instruction and were therefore attracted to this approach. People often wanted to learn one thing and learn it quickly. There was much less interest in long-term programming that contained several topic areas, some that were of no interest, but they were grouped into the program content. And the trainers would like to caution other people considering digital literacy programming to be prepared to use participants' cell phones as the tech device used for learning. If possible, offer in-person programming first. On-site learning often has to happen first as many people do not have the required skills to learn off-site. A lesson learned for all of us is that it's important to make preparing the people we work with so they're able to learn and access our services from home. This needs to be a priority so we can make sure that people using our services are less vulnerable should an immediate lockdown ever occur again. If people require you to purchase technology, some of our project partners suggested that Chromebooks were useful and affordable. One of our partners noted that progress online can be subtle. For example, if a participant eventually feels confident enough to turn on their camera during a Zoom session. Surprisingly, we learned that some populations are better suited to online learning. According to one instructor, the focus is usually on those who don't do well online, but for certain populations, for some reason, they blossom online. Whether it was due to social anxiety or specialized learning needs, some people preferred online learning and excelled in an online environment. This makes a strong case for agencies and institutions to maintain some form of online programming going forward. One of the project partners suggested that since working from home is becoming part of contemporary employment, it would be worthwhile considering some curriculum development around this. I agree, and I also think we could make for an interesting discussion around how this could change what preparing people for work could look like going forward. We have a few lessons learned around working with the target populations that were addressed through the Community Tech Connect program. The first one is that there's a diverse amount of experience and comfort with technology with those of all ages. No matter the age, some were very, very nervous about using a computer, a tablet, or a cell phone. Some were afraid to have an email address or be connected to any form of technology for fear of fraudulent online activity and scams. Seniors often requested to repeat learning instead of moving on to new topics. And although youth already used technology regularly and they had certain knowledge, the digital literacy curriculum formalized that knowledge. One example is the class where they learned the difference between a search engine and a browser. Another example is when they learned the difference between personal and private information and how to protect themselves when they're online. In turn, they helped the instructors to learn about some aspects of digital technology that the instructors didn't know about. One of the Tech Connect partners shared that often Indigenous communities face limitations when accessing digital technology. In many cases, the computers are only in community centers, and connection quality is poor. The trainer leading the Community Tech Connect programming in an Indigenous community stated that best practices for using computers in public spaces would be a valuable topic since many people will not have computers at home. Participants can learn how to protect themselves by managing their search history. Some parents expressed a concern for the online safety of their children.
So, intergenerational programming could be considered in the future, where children and parents learn about digital literacy and online safety side by side. And during one session, a senior Francophone group asked how to use Google Translate. This could be a useful program focus going forward. For example, how to use the camera and the voice features. Google Translate's an important tool for Francophones living in a mostly Anglophone environment.
A portion of our project focused on addressing diverse learning needs. As stated earlier, we received funds for technology devices and ASL translation to support people who have identified as having special learning needs. 2 small reports have been provided to share the lessons learned by our subject matter experts in the area of providing accommodations for learning. These are included in our final report. For now, here's a few highlights. Everything is new to learners. They need time to become familiar with the device, assistive technology, and any websites. For example, if a learner has a desktop computer set up with location and time of year are important. Weather, construction, and bus routes may affect their attendance. VoiceOver uses speech synthesizers may be distracting to both instructors and students that do not require this method of communication. Some ways to mitigate this is by providing learners with headphones. When delivering remotely, consider using remote connection applications such as Windows Quick Assist that allows trainers to view and control a participant's computer. Again, I refer you to the final report that will be posted on our website for more insights and further explanations. I'd also like to draw your attention to a small companion guide that was created through this project to profile adaptations that could be used when providing programming to people with diverse learning needs. It can be found on our website in our digital literacy section. Switching from lessons learned through program delivery, we'd like to share some project management lessons learned. These are based on what worked for us and suggestions from our partners. We thought you'd appreciate some of these helpful tips should you consider offering a similar program. If you're committed to meet them where they are, plan for programming that allows for flexibility. This includes designing curriculum that is adaptable to various needs and populations. House the resources in a way that trainers can access them and delete or include content to match it to the people's needs. Consider all translation costs. Translation for evaluation surveys and marketing and branding should be included, in addition to the curriculum translation. One-to-one program delivery is often required when teaching someone remotely. This lowers the number of people that can be served within a certain time frame. To offer digital literacy programming in an online environment, the program needs to be well-resourced. With more time and resources required, performance measures around participant numbers served online can't be compared to those of an in-class program. Working with special needs populations may need more intensive instruction, time, and staff support. Take this into consideration when setting a budget and performance measures. Know that you often don't know what accommodation needs there will be until you actually meet the people that you're instructing. It's a good idea to research before making technology purchases. Explore what technology is issued by other systems in your area so that participants can have a greater chance of being able to use that technology should they come across it. For an example, in our area, the school board was switching to Chromebooks. And if you recall, the program in Elgin County that was using the iPads for their Tech Connect program. Think about internet capabilities in the area where you propose to deliver services. You may need to budget for this and prepare to make arrangements for technical needs and challenges, especially in the rural areas. You may have to consider things like hotspots, signal boosters, or range extenders.
And a community of practice was a very good fit for this project. Our 10 partners spanned across a 5-county area, served diverse and often complex populations, and all delivered digital literacy programming. There were numerous lessons to share with each other. Our meetings were a place where challenges were openly discussed and solutions were offered. The meetings helped to generate ideas for outreach and programming. We also shared resources that might be of interest. And when COVID hit, the community of practice provided a valuable camaraderie, reminding our project partners that they were part of a team.
Did we meet our target numbers? We absolutely did, and then some. We had a contracted target of 855 people. And as you can see by this slide, we eventually engaged 1,380 people in digital literacy programming. You can also see by the slide that momentum grew. And this speaks to the power of multi-year funding. It takes time to develop partnerships and determine where your program fits in the community. After the Community Tech Connect program ends, our community will have an ongoing need for digital literacy programming. In fact, some of our project partners are still getting requests to offer digital literacy programming during the final weeks of this program. Having this Government of Canada funding helped us to reach out to populations that would not have otherwise been served. The funding helped our project partners to pilot programs and design a fit for the population they serve. Many hope to somehow continue with this service. However, some will now have the in-house expertise to deliver the programming, but not the capacity. We've seen how to integrate basic digital literacy programming into some of our community's existing programs. Some new partnerships have been built through the Community Tech Connect program that are in a position to continue long-term. We've had the opportunity to learn where there are places to build digital literacy bridges between programs and where we can fill digital literacy gaps within programs. Ontario's literacy and basic skills programs are designed to meet some of the digital literacy needs of adults in Ontario. If someone can commit to long-term programming and has an education, training, or employment-related goal, then a literacy and basic skills program could be a suitable choice for digital literacy programming. However, the literacy and basic skills program design does not have the inherent flexibility needed to adapt to the ever-changing and urgent digital literacy interventions that we saw were required throughout the Community Tech Connect program. We encourage all levels of government and key stakeholders in digital literacy to recognize that digital access is not just about access to the internet and technology. It's also about the skills required to use technology. We see an urgent, ongoing need for funding that is flexible, allowing service providers to adapt programming to varied digital literacy needs of the population they work with and the emergent needs of the greater community. Over the extraordinary time in history that this project ran, we saw the true power of what having digital literacy skills can do for individuals. They connect people to their community, to learning opportunities, to essential information and services. The COVID pandemic reaffirmed what we already knew. Competency in digital literacy skills equals resiliency. The pandemic, however, shone a new light on the urgent and ongoing need for people in our community who still need to have access to technology and need to be taught to be able to confidently and safely use it. The digital literacy skills needed by a population are a moving target based on individual goals and what's happening environmentally. The measure of digital competency is always changing, as is technology. We will therefore need to continually reflect on what it means to be digitally literate. And we must recognize there will always be a need for digital literacy programming. The idea of meet them where they are changed throughout our project. Originally, it was a concept of place-based learning, showing up in places where people go. When you take away the opportunity of delivering programming on site, the concept of meet them where they are changes, and the statement grows in its significance. Meeting them where they are is about taking into consideration specific needs, languages, and cultures. Meeting them where they are is about tailoring approaches, program design, and content for each individual. We need to meet people where their interests and their abilities lie. We must make every effort to design flexible programming to meet the emerging real-time and urgent needs. And to find people who can benefit from these uniquely designed digital literacy services, we need to meet them on the path that leads to their goal and explore with them how digital literacy will be part of that journey. Once again, we'd like to thank the Government of Canada for providing us with the funding to bring the Community Tech Connect program into our community. Please don't hesitate to contact us with questions or if you want to learn more about our experience. We encourage you to visit our website and explore the digital literacy section to access the modules created through this project. There you will also find our in-depth final report, which contains the evaluator's report on the project's demographic data and participant impact. Thank you for your interest in the Community Tech Connect program.